welcome. My name is Kelly, and this is Fanimated, an animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. This week, Kate and Laura are with me to discuss the newest Disney animation feature film, Raya and the Last Dragon. Whether you check this one out in theaters or in the comfort and safety of your own home through Disney+, Raya's beautiful world design and stunning animation make for a phenomenal viewing experience. Warning that we do go into some spoiler territory, but we do leave some plot surprises for you if you'd like to get through the episode before seeing the film. So if you're ready to go, let's get started and let's get animated. Kate, Laura, how are you guys doing?
We're good.
I'm so good. We're trying not to talk at the same time, and we're just waiting for each other like good Minnesotans. No, you go first.
So I am so excited that I got to go to a movie theater.
That is exciting.
I don't know about you guys, but it was just good to be in a movie theater again and see a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
We watched it on Disney+.
We did.
I went to a movie theater that has no people in it. So yeah.
I am jealous. This is a movie that should be seen on a big screen. It's a visual delight.
Absolutely. I am very glad that streaming is an option on Disney+. So
agreed.
And you guys and your super great TV, Laura. I'm sure I had a great experience.
It looked pretty freaking awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It was great.
That's so good. On the big screen, it was very fun, I will say, for sure. I haven't been to the theater in months. So, of course, we're talking about Raya and the Last Dragon, recent release into theater/streaming. And I usually don't, talk about new releases so quickly, but I kind of had a feeling this would be a good one. And I was not disappointed. I definitely have some critiques, but I'll save those for later so we can talk about all the good, positive things first.
Absolutely. I was so excited to see this movie both before and after. I think one of the great things about the streaming element of Disney Plus and being able to see it in the theater, first of all, I think that it makes Disney Plus worth having Disney Plus. I know you have to have Premier Access, but we do because of Mulan. And I also just really, I like that it gives you something to look forward to. I think that the movie, after seeing the movie it's so funny that it's so poignant for what's happening right now, both from the political climate of the United States and the fact that we're living in a global pandemic. The message of this film that they developed 4 years ago fits so well. And I feel like it coming at the end of this space, and by end, it's not the end of the pandemic, but we've kind of hit that year mark. We've just sort of started settling after a lot of political unrest. I just thought that it was kind of amazing how poignant this movie was and how much I love being able to just sit on my couch and watch this brand new, beautiful movie with this great story and have it be so meaningful for the time that it is right now. And I love being able to watch it at home because of that.
Yeah. Well, and it's I think it's with everything with COVID right now, I think that it's great that all of these movie studios are, not just being hey, we're going to release our movies anyways, go to the theater, whether you feel safe or not, if you want to see this, but they're really they're being smart in their decisions in regards to their audience's health and, trying to kind of make a profit in this COVID world. So,
you know what I was going to say, what else I thought was kind of fun about this movie? And I feel like it kind of happened with Soul and with Mulan as well, which are the movies in my mind, kind of their big movies that have come out during the pandemic. I feel like I just didn't see as much advertising for this film. I don't watch a lot of network television, but even just on my social media streams, you know, on the radio, places where I normally hear a lot of advertisements for film and entertainment. I feel like this wasn't advertised as heavily, especially for sort of a quote unquote princess film. Raya is a princess technically. I just thought that it added this kind of mysterious element, and especially it, you know, it's called Raya and the Last Dragon, and it's got all these sort of Southeast Asian influences, and it made it seem really kind of mysterious, and I was really excited to watch it because of that. It felt like a secret a little bit. You know, Disney so often is like, here's the next one, oh my gosh, you know, and it's been advertised forever and you know about it. And this one I knew because I've known about it for years, that they were developing this and when they were casting, but just in the lead up to it coming out, it felt kind of like this mysterious secret that I was in on and that I was going to get to watch, and it was very exciting.
even the like initial trailer for it, kind of the teaser trailer, it didn't give anything away, and the scoring of the trailer and the sequence that they used from the movie to promote the film was just like, oh, this looks so cool. I think I texted Kelly and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be really cool, I could tell. So yeah, I think that was kind of a smart decision to be like, and especially, you know, with the internet, we're in the world of spoilers, like to kind of be like, here's a little teaser of what's to come and this world that we're building, and kind of it's like cool, and she's like a cool girl, and I don't know,
and the land was mysterious. I felt like I didn't know anything about where we were going, you know, or what was going to happen. I knew there was a girl named Raya and that there was a dragon. And that's
wonderful deductive reasoning.
I also thank you, Kelly. I also really purposely try to not dig too far into spoilers or you know, things that give away the story before movies. I really like being surprised and entertained, so I let myself be surprised, and the advertising for this film also allowed me to be surprised, which was so much fun. It reminded me of being a little kid when you would go to the theater and be completely in awe of what you were seeing. It reminded me of being surprised when my mom would just say, we're going to go see The Lion King. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to see this Raya thing. I'm excited.
Yes. Oh, that's so great. I definitely agree. I didn't see as much advertisement for this one, but then also I wonder if maybe I just wasn't seeking it out as much, because like there are definitely movies I am super, super excited for and will like rewatch the trailer a million times. And then this is one that I was really excited for, but you know, I also try to be careful, you know, because I don't want to see anything that's going to ruin the experience for me. So I feel like this was one that I definitely wanted to be surprised and wanted, you know, to let that mysterious nature kind of, you know, do its thing. And I'm glad, because like, you know, a lot of times with these films, you can, you know, see all the best parts in the trailers, and this definitely doesn't fit that, but you know, it's always not sure what you're gonna get, especially with some I feel like, you know, Disney can be pretty good, but there are some times where it's like, okay, the marketing isn't saying what the movie is about. It isn't doing a good job, I guess, of like portraying what the movie is. But regardless, I mean, this was great. So for those of you who don't know, Raya and the Last Dragon follows the story of our Princess of Heart, Raya, as she tries to find the last dragon. In this world of Kumandra, there are monsters that are taking over and turning everyone to stone. And the only power that can stop them is like the power of the dragons. And the dragons, you know, the last dragons had come together to create this gem that was all of their magic combined, that, you know, basically saved humanity. However, this gem has now been broke, you know, through the different tribes fighting over it. It's been broken into pieces, and every tribe, like every clan has its own piece. And so Raya has to find the last dragon, find all the pieces, and save the world, basically. That's your basic premise.
That was great, Kelly.
Thank you.
That was very concise.
That's the basis of it, at least. I want to ask, there is a lot of exposition in this film. I would argue this is one of the reasons it could have been better for me, is the fact that there's so much. They spent like a half an hour on the prologue. How did you guys feel about that section?
I think that they I don't know. I think that it was kind of necessary. I think they really focused on the world building aspects of the film. And I think that was kind of, in order to grasp Raya's journey and the point of the story and the message that they want to deliver, I think it was kind of necessary to, like, we've got the story of, this is this is what the dragons were, and this is, how this all happened in order for us to have this gemstone. And yes, and now we know why the tribes are fractured out. And then there's like a B section to the prologue, which establishes the start of Raya's journey. I think that's all kind of necessary. Yeah, it was a little lengthy, but
I would argue one of the things that we could talk about this later as well, this is not a musical. There is no singing.
Yes.
It is not a musical. They obviously decided this was a story that was not going to be furthered by music. And I think that's just fine. I think that was a great decision for them. I would argue that there is no more exposition in this than any Disney film. They just do it with talking instead of song. Every Disney film has a bunch of exposition at the beginning, but it's done via song. So there was no more than there is in Frozen. They just sang their exposition instead of talked about it. So, and the same could be said for Tangled. Her
right.
in her room counting the days and wanting to, that's exposition. It's exposition. So it's just not done through song. I think that it was very necessary. I think that it introduced all the characters. I think that it gave us a time of sense and place. I really liked the, that section had a lot of the flashback exposition was done in more of like a very stylized, very 2D type of animation to make it look like a story or a parchment that was being told, like it was the history of the place. And then you had the beginning of the story that started when Raya was a little girl, and then we flashed forward to where the action kind of starts. I also would argue that it's necessary because the rest of the movie clips along very quickly. And that if they didn't, I think they didn't want to get bogged down in exposition during the journey to all the lands and the gathering of the stones. They really wanted to focus on character and place. And so they decided to put a lot of that exposition at the beginning. Yeah. And so I really liked it. I like that format of storytelling where you get a lot of explanation in the beginning so the action can be really poignant and meaningful and you don't get bogged down in like stopping to explain things.
I think that's an excellent point, especially the fact that this is not a musical. Honestly, they didn't have time for music. Okay.
Right.
No.
They had so much to say. Like I personally, I really love the prologue. I just kind of wish I had had more time in the action, and I would have rather like given up the prologue time in order to have more time with all of the many, many places and people we meet.
Sure.
I will say there were two very, very emotional moments for me where I definitely had tears in my eyes, and her father pushing her over the bridge was one of them.
That, yeah.
So it was a great prologue. It was well done. I just I would have rather have learned that information as they went along. But I understand and I totally see the perspective of, oh, well, they got all that out of the way so they could just keep going through the story later.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that one of the things that it added to, and that I kept writing down in my notes and I talked about it with Kate, is that I liked the amount of explanation in the beginning because it cemented what the story was about, and that all of the other people we met and everything that happened afterwards all happened around a through line that was established at the beginning. This is a movie and the theme is community, and that community is built through trust. This is a movie about trust, trusting other people. That's the word when I've like over and over and over, every time they interviewed a director or a writer or an actor, they're like, what is this movie about? Trust. This movie is about trust. And I think that especially with some of our other favorite Disney films, particularly the two Frozen films, if you've listened to our podcast about Frozen, it's very clear that they have no idea what their movies are about until about 2 weeks before they hit the theater.
Yeah.
Right.
And that it just becomes a like muddled storyline and there's way too many themes going on. And so that beginning part for me was it established that this movie was about trust. Her dad wanted to, people stopped trusting each other. The world fell apart. Her dad wanted to bring it back together by trying to teach her to trust people. The trust was broken again. Raya's world falls apart, and that over and over and over, that is the theme that carries through over and like for the whole thing. And that at the very end, like the climax is because trust finally happens and it's not perfect. Oh, I just love this storyline. I love it so much.
And I think that like the nice thing about having that premise and that message established right up front in the very beginning of the movie, I like that kind of allows a different viewing experience, because that allows the viewer to like, we know what we're getting into. We kind of know, we don't know the details of where the story is going to go, but we kind of know, okay, this might be what they're trying to hone in on. And that kind of allows you to like ruminate on that as you're watching. And I don't feel like we get that too frequently. I feel like, especially we're kind of in an age of film where everything is like, don't spoil it. You don't want to know what the twists are. And so that there's not like room for, if a film is trying to say something, there's not really a whole lot of room for them to be like, this is what this movie is about. Here you go. Here's 2 hours to think on this thing that this movie is about. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of a different approach to their storytelling. I liked that a lot.
I will definitely agree with you guys that Raya and the Last Dragon team had a plan. They had a through line, they had a theme, and they stuck with it. And I can't fault them for that because, like we said, Frozen don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So, after the prologue, of course, Raya finds the last dragon and has to find all the pieces. And as they find all the pieces that are spread throughout the land, they gain members of the party, basically. And we meet different characters in each locale who join them on their journey. So my question for you guys is, of those, of our little ragtag group of heroes, who's your favorite?
I mean, does Sisu count? Because she is my absolute favorite.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Sisu.
Her. And it's mostly due to Awkwafina's wonderful performance, but I love
I agree. I love Sisu. Let's talk about her quick. So Awkwafina was the first person that they cast before they even really had decided what Sisu looked like, which is why both versions of Sisu look so much like Awkwafina.
Like her.
And they were able to build her mannerisms into her, into the character. I love her. I think she's so cute and quirky. She gave me big Mushu vibes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Mostly because not of how she acts necessarily, but it was that kind of playful, like, the lead up to like, ooh, the mystical dragons, and then she's like really fun and funky and silly and not perfect, which I think was very much so on purpose. I loved that message that it's, you know, it's trust and family and friends and relationships that make things work, not being like perfect or mystical or really strong. You know, that they thought she was
Yeah.
this unbelievably super strong dragon
Mhm.
that fixed everything. And that it turns out if she's like, no, I just really trust and love everyone, and that's why it worked.
Mhm.
And she's so silly and so fun and so beautifully animated, and I think a really unique version of the dragon character that I really liked. She was something I hadn't really seen before. I loved her. I just
Yeah.
loved her. I loved her so much.
Well, and kind of bouncing off that, like when we were watching it, I kind of said like, "Oh, I love the design of the dragons," and kind of was just we had talked about it the other night, but like the design of the dragons in this movie is so different and so colorful, and like it, I think as far as we've seen, Kelly, we've seen many different iterations of dragons
Yes.
throughout animated film history, and I love that they designed it so specifically and so like adhering to um the kind of Asian
The Eastern version of a
thank you,
dragon.
Eastern version of the dragon, as opposed to like what we know from kind of the European How to Train Your Dragon style. And I feel like
Yes.
not only did it differentiate just on kind of a basic animation level, but for a young kid who's watching these movies, they can point to the doll that will inevitably be in Target of the Sisu character and go, oh, that's Sisu. That's not Toothless. That's not, fill in this other dragon. Like, it's a very specific design, and it works so well within the world of the film.
I love that she had fur instead of scales. I thought that that was like a very cool choice for the design of her and the other dragons. I loved how it gave them like a really great way to transition her between the human version of her character and the dragon version of her character.
Yes.
Like Kate said, we talked about this after we watched it, that I just think it was really cool that because they have a dragon in Mulan, and there are other very successful films in the kind of world of more modern animation that have dragon characters. I really love that they wanted her to be, and all the dragons in this, to be really unique and to live in the world of this film. And I liked that, and I liked how they built that character around that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think there are definitely a lot of unique things about the design of the dragons, and definitely is unique to this world. However, I will say one of my critiques is that of the dragons in this world, they are all just very small variants of the same core design. It's basically you got at the end, spoiler alert, all the dragons come back, and they all kind of share that same look, except they have varying rainbow of colors, and maybe like their horn is different or the hair is a little different, which granted made for a really very colorful, beautiful, epic scene. But I would say it also, and not that they had time to like design very specific different dragons for like 3 minutes of film time, but also it felt a little My Little Pony because it was just like the same thing but different colors.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I make an argument to that though? Not
Absolutely.
necessarily an argument, but just a point. I mean, because obviously it's your favorite movie and it sticks out in my mind as being another big dragon film, How to Train Your Dragon. When they introduce the world of dragons, they're all so different in design, and I wonder if Disney maybe did that on, or not Disney, but the animators maybe tried to do that on purpose so that if they were doing variants, they didn't kind of tread into that territory. And obviously, like the design influence is different, and we're talking about different parts of the world here, but I wonder if that maybe had to play into that a little bit.
I am by no means an expert on South Asian or Southeast Asian culture, but I do know particularly from, oddly enough, my ninth grade English teacher, who was an artist and was very obsessed with Asian art, that the dragon and the form of the dragon in Asian folklore and Asian art, it's very specific. There are not variants. There are not different types. There's different colors that can do different colors that do different things, but the form of the dragon is always the same, and the dragon generally means the same thing. It's a touchstone in that. So that's where kind of the Western form of the dragon, where they can do different things and they breathe fire and they're usually kind of evil and scary. That's the more Western understanding of what a dragon is, and the Eastern understanding and like version of what a dragon is in their culture is much more specific and centered and different. And I think that that's played a large part into the design of the dragon characters, was trying to stay true to the role that the dragon plays in that culture, and that going too far away from that, I think, was going to cause problems.
Very valid and also really cool. What other characters do you really love?
I really loved Boone. I thought that he was cute. I liked him to begin with. I loved his little spiel. I also really I think one of the reasons he became my favorite after, when I was doing research about each of the characters and kind of the animation teams that created each of the characters, when they were developing the character of Boone, I guess that they knew they wanted like a younger boy. And the question came up of, is it weird to have a little boy running a restaurant by himself on a boat? And they talked about, when they did their research trips to the different cities and countries of Southeast Asia, that it's not unusual to have the children and grandchildren of the cooks and the people in the food stalls are the ones that are out in the street barking and bugging you for the tip and telling you what's in the food. Like, they do all the sales. And so that was kind of part of the inspiration for that character, was the experience of being in, sort of the square where all of the outdoor stalls are, where people were selling food. So I loved that. I also really loved, and I think that they touched on it a little bit with Noi, but her character was a little bit more on the funny side. And she didn't speak, but I loved that idea of, most of the characters are younger and they've had to step up and take care of themselves. And I really loved that he was kind of filling that role of, he's a little boy, but he's trying to hold it all together by himself. And he's actually doing a really great job. I just thought he was cute, throwing all the food everywhere and with all his different spices. And I loved the way that the other characters interacted with him. And I love that he didn't really, everyone else kind of was a fighter, and he was like, I'm a cook.
I love that.
Like, here's some shrimps. Like, ha.
I agree. And again and again, you see, like, food is what brings people together, and so he has a power to do that because he's a cook.
Yep.
What about you, Kate?
Well, I can tell you one character I wasn't a fan of.
Okay, all right.
I told this to Laura and she thought it was so funny. So I did not care for Noi, the baby.
All right,
I will
all
tell
right.
you why.
Yeah.
I will tell you why. Because this is a trope that pops up, I shouldn't say a lot, but many times in animated features, particularly, where you have a character who is an infant whose capabilities are outside of their age, and that drives me bonkers. I don't know why but I just find it so. I said to Laura, I was like, "What is this, boss baby?" Like, it's just it, and we talked about it, and she'll explain a little bit more because she did more research than I did, but it's just something that kind of, I just think is kind of strange. And I feel like I was just watching Brave, and the triplets in Brave, I feel like, are kind of similar. They're like, they refer to them as babies. They're clearly like maybe 3 or 4. They're not very verbal in the film. I don't know that they're verbal at all, but they are animated to look a little older. They're animated to look about 3 years old. And I was like, couldn't we have just animated her to be 3 years old just so that she wasn't like a 9-month-old who's walking and like is smarter than everybody?
But that's what makes it funny.
It's not funny though.
Okay.
I don't think it's funny.
Okay,
I think it's stupid.
Okay, 2 things, and I already told this to Kate, so she's hearing this for the second time. 2 things. One of the first things, and this kind of gets into production and story, I think it's very cool. When I was reading an interview with the directors, I forget which one it was, but one of them brought up when they were developing the idea of Noi, and they were like, is this weird? Like, is it weird that this baby can do this? And one of the things that the director brought up is he said one of the reasons that Noi is here and that we really lobbed onto this idea and that we liked it is that in the modern world of animation, now that everything we see is CGI and it's so seamless and it's so great, animation used to exist because you could create a world that was either impossible or too difficult to do with practical, right? So we're going to create a made-up animated world. Now that CGI exists and all of that new technology exists, you don't have to do that with animation anymore. So he brought up the question. He was like, so why is this animated? When we sit down at Disney with all of the tools that we have at our disposal to make all different kinds of film, think of the Marvel universe, think of the Star Wars universe, and then why is this one going to live in Disney Animation Studios? Why are we making it this way? And he's like, the character of Noi is one of the reasons that you do animation, because the suspension of disbelief just exists in a different space in the world of animation. Yes. He's like, we could make a CGI baby that could do ninja stuff. It'd be really weird. And people would be like, this is weird. Right? Like, but when it's a cute animated trope with monkeys, that's fun. You can only get away with that being fun in the world of animation. And I thought that I had never thought of animated storytelling that way before, that now that filmmaking technology has come so far, you have to ask it's not just because we can't do it without animation anymore. It's like, why, like, we have to make the decision to make this animated for something other than the confines of practical filmmaking. Second, I reminded Kate, and we had a big discussion about this last night, that we are adults. I am 31 years old. Kate is 28 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
Kate's 28 years old. We love Disney, but the core of Disney is children. We like it because we loved it when we were children. Mm-hmm. Let's be real. Our parents are not lining up to go on solo adult vacations to Disney World. They're not. Disney does a great job of making entertainment for the entire family, but the core of what they do is creating wonder for children and creating stories that create adults like us, right? Disney played a huge part in our childhood. And so as an adult, Noi might be stupid, but you better believe that every child under the age of 7, their favorite character is Noi, right. And they think she is they think that she and the monkeys are the funniest thing they have ever right. seen. That so much of this story is adult and adult themes, and the girls are like fully adult women. I know they're supposed to be teenagers, but they're built with developed bodies, and they're muscular, and they're dealing with family stuff, and it's like, this is Disney, and they're gonna have a kung fu baby with some monkeys.
Yes,
because the kids are going to love it. It's just like we had this discussion about Olaf, right? It was like, I think Kelly, it was you who didn't like Olaf.
I didn't like Olaf in the first movie,
and it's like,
and I still
every single child's favorite character is Olaf because it's Disney. And it's okay that the adults, like, this was not made for adults exclusively. There's going to be parts of this that are designed to be entertaining for children. And as much as she's silly, gosh, that fight sequence is gorgeous.
Right.
And animated beautifully. And I enjoyed it. And the kids are all peeing their pants laughing. So
Yeah,
that's true.
win,
I
win,
just
win.
don't find
and as we move on, like continuing talking about characters, I love her relationship with Tong.
right.
That
Oh,
Tong has lost his
yes.
family and, you know, all the children in his family to the Droon, and then that Noi has lost all of her parents to the Droon. And that
Yes.
there's a little moment where they're talking about something where like Noi is sitting on Tong's shoulder and she like reaches over and puts her little baby hand on his chin, and it's just like, oh, they're creating they're a little family. And I love that. I thought that was really cute.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like a little tender moment at the end that they have that's like both really sweet and like rips your heart out.
Yes, I personally am on Laura's side. I love Noi. I think she's adorable. But Kate, you are not alone. I went to see it with my sister and she agrees with you. One of the first things that she said afterwards was like, that baby was weird. So I love Boone. Don't get me wrong. Definitely top tier. But of the other, characters in the group, Tong is my favorite, probably because his story hit me the most. Because it's that realization moment when you realize that he's the only one left and everyone else has turned to stone. And then you see the little crib, and so it's like, oh no, his whole family is like, everyone else has lost their family too, but like there's something about that just like hit me completely differently. And I love that it's just like all these kids and crazy gals, and then there's Big Tong.
Yeah, I loved that. I love the shape of the group that they created.
Yeah.
I also think that probably played into like why Noi was a baby, because it's like, so we got like a youth boy, we've got like a late teenage girl, we have a giant man, we've got a dragon. So how about a baby, right?
How about something really small?
And I also like, I love that the character of Tong, I think that's the beauty of this entire story, and going to each of the different lands and experiencing the unique character, and then something unique happens in each of those lands. And Tong was the character that pulled at the adult heartstrings, while Noi was the character that, like I just said, was probably going to be every child's favorite character because they think she's so funny. That moment with Tong, the empty crib and the him being by himself may not resonate with the younger kids, but that's the moment that like the adults watching it feel that. Like that's the character that they're like, oh my gosh, right? And I think that's, when wanting to create that the entire story was about building community through trust, I think it's really cool that they were obviously very cognizant about having each of their characters represent a different age group and a different version of a community, so that their audience could connect in that way too. And it brings together different types of audience members into the story together, instead of it just being, this is a story about a teenage girl finding herself and becoming strong. It's like, I love that, but also there's a character that everyone can see themselves in here, and that they're all important, and they're all, even though Raya's the main character, all the characters are on the same journey together.
There is very rarely such a story with like multi-generational, communities like this, and I think that's really special and something to be really valued, because we don't, especially in our culture now, like we separate ourselves generationally so much more than like we ever have as humans. Like we put old people in homes, we send kids off to school somewhere else. Like we're all very separate in our day-to-day lives, and there are very few places where you seek out community and it's a multi-generational sort of community. So I thought that was you make a really great point about that.
Can we talk about Tuk Tuk?
He's so
Let's
cute.
absolutely talk about Tuk Tuk. The cutest. Love
Little
him.
pill bug dog. I read online that the inspiration for his character was a cross between a pill bug and a pug.
Cute. Oh, adorable.
He is Raya's trusty steed, who is a pill bug.
He's a steed.
Well, that apparently instead of, and it was funny because the director was like, he's like, believe it or not, we don't sit down and ask, okay, what's the plush animal that we're going to sell 1 million of at the store going to be in this film? He was like, we actually like, Tuk Tuk was developed organically after we figured out that Raya needed a mode of transportation to be able to quickly get around an entire land in 6 years. And they're like, well, we need like a steed, especially they were like her opening scene, you know, after we've done all the exposition and the flashback and it's 6 years later, they're like, she needs to be riding something. It's very like she's in the desert land, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's in Spine. No, she's not in Spine. Which land does she
goes
start in?
Tail.
To Tail. She's in Tail, which is a desert land. And they're like, this are very like Wild West Clint Eastwood moment of like Raya the cowgirl, right, on her trusty steed. And they're like, well, it can't be a horse. What should it be? And I guess they were just throwing stuff around and they're like, what about a pill bug that rolls?
I love that so much.
And then they were like, great. And then they developed Tuk Tuk, and someone was like, well, what if it looked like a pug, but it was a pill bug? Like, and that they developed Tuk Tuk literally around that first scene in Tail. And then they fell so in love with the character that they were like, can he be in the background of this scene? Or like, what if he tries to drink her soup? Or like, well, if we have little Raya, we definitely need little Tuk Tuk. And so it was like, it was more that it, like she needed something to ride, and then I guess that they got done with the character design and they all just loved him so much they were like, he needs to be in every scene because he's the best.
I love that so much. Oh, that is so fun. And I personally, I watch it and I'm like, that must be the most uncomfortable way to travel.
On a rolling pill bug.
Right.
It's so
She's
bumpy.
got a little saddle for him, though.
She's got the little saddle. He's so cute.
He's very cute.
Not only is he just like a really charming character and really well designed, like all of the creatures, and I know we talked about the dragons already, but also just like the other random creatures in this world, like the little mouse things and like the just everything was beautiful. And like all of the different you know, animal designs, and it's also inventive, and not to mention just like the settings themselves, which are gorgeous.
Yes. I completely agree. All of the animals were so unique. Each world had its own unique set of animals, which I loved. You know, each world was the entire, or land, I should say, the entire world was inspired. It's like a conglomeration of Southeast Asian culture. It's not supposed to be one specific place, sort of like how Arendelle is a conglomeration of like all of Scandinavian culture shoved in together. And I think that I loved that the animals were all kind of influenced by animals from those places, but then they were kind of like mixed together with different stuff. And like, why would this exist in this type of land? I don't know if you guys know this, but Tuk Tuk is actually the name of a 3-wheeled moped that they ride in Thailand. It's like one of the main forms of transportation in Thailand. And they're called Tuk Tuks because the noise that they make when they go down the road is like tuk 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 tuk. And that's why his noise is tuk 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 tuk. What he actually sounds like a tuk tuk from Thailand when he rolls. And just like that level of
clever.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of the animals in this, there was so much detail to like, oh, this type of animal, so like let's mix these two together and it looks or sounds like this, which is inspired by this. Yeah, it just, there were so many layers and so much detail that made all those animal, like the entire, like you said, the entire world. I have something written down here. The background animators actually created 35,749 non-human characters to populate this world. 35,749 non-human characters, unique non-human characters.
That is insane. I love that.
Like, ridiculous. There were 18,987 different human characters in this film to populate the crowds. Those were all individual people.
Wow.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
All right, we have gotten like over halfway through this episode, and we have yet to talk about Raya. So
that's so true.
Oh no. Main character.
Dear. And we haven't talked about Namari either. So let's talk about Raya and Namari.
Yeah,
they're
let's talk
very
about
important
them.
characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And their relationship is central to this entire thing.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
One thing that I said to Laura that I thought was I really like this about Raya. And I think particularly this element is kind of increased by the fact that this is not a musical. That was kind of an element that we were talking about, like, oh, well, it's not a musical. Raya is, and with the whole theme of, you know, her kind of growing into being a more trusting, more empathetic person. She's someone who obviously, you know, the beginning of the movie, things go south for her, and she is someone who has kind of internalized a lot of that trauma and has really kind of hardened herself to, you know, others. What am I trying to say? She's hardened herself to the world and, you know, has a hard time letting others in. And it's a very unique quality for a character who is a Disney princess. Because most of the Disney princesses, even the ones like Mulan, like Pocahontas, even Moana, who are like, yeah, they're really strong and they're really independent and they are their own catalysts for their own journey. There's still that element to them that is kind of still adheres to that kind of traditional princess quality of, oh, I'm really dreamy and I want a life that I'm not living right now and it's far away and I have to go get it. And I mean, Mulan is a little more of a closer comparison to Raya, I would say, just because her goal is her duty to fulfill for her father and for her family. But Raya is a lot more hardened and a lot more stoic, I would say, than the other Disney princesses. I think that's a really unique quality for her to have. And I like that she has that quality because there might be girls out there who feel a little more akin to Raya than, you know, a Cinderella or an Ariel or a Belle who's like, I'm really dreamy and I just want to go out and find that dream that I'm chasing. So I think that's a really important element for Raya to have. You two are freaking out. So
Kelly, do you want to go first?
The floor.
No, I was just saying, I just thought maybe Sisu is the real Disney princess. Has the more traditional
princess.
She's
very dreamy.
Yeah, very princess qualities. Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that I think is similar to what Kate was saying. Something that is extremely unique about Raya is that this is, in my opinion, one of the first princesses, quote unquote, that Disney has created that I really feel like they decided she was a girl, but nothing in her storyline has to do with her gender.
Right.
Yes.
She could have been a boy character and the script would not have changed at all. I think that is really important. It's a difference between, you know, Mulan is a story about a female warrior, and a lot of the Disney princesses and sort of the making the rah-rah girls can do it all is there's always that element of like, you think I can't because I'm a girl, which we as women experience every single day. That's a legitimate story that needs to be told. But I also think that there's something really powerful in having, like, eliminating that from the story, that her gender has nothing to do with the journey that she goes on. or the story that she tells. And I think that's really important for girls to see, that this isn't because you're a girl, this is because you're a human. And yes, that means she could have been a boy, but it's important that that version of that character, because usually that type of story is told through the lens the character is a boy. You could maybe put a girl in that part and it wouldn't change, but usually they default to boy. And the fact that Raya is a girl, a strong, beautiful girl, and they paid a lot of attention to the fact that she's a girl, and animated her to look like a girl and move like a girl and act like a girl, but her storyline is not based around the fact that she's a girl.
I absolutely agree. And part of it is like, this is a very, it's a made up world. So they can make up, like, they can create social standards the way that they want to. They can idealize, like, a world where it doesn't matter whether you're a girl or a boy, like whatever your gender identity is, and you can still be like, we have two really kick butt princesses in this movie, and like, you can switch either of them out for any gender you want and the story would stay the same. And that's just like, again, another, and I think in a lot of ways, unless your story is focusing on that, like, a lot of people who are creating world building, creating a different land, like, will carry on stereotypes and things of all sorts, where it's like, no, you're this is made up. You can do whatever you want. Like, you can get rid of those stereotypes if you want, and show an idealized, like, best case scenario version of the world. And that's what they did. And they just utilized that. They were like, okay, we're gonna make it the way we want it to be. And it was great.
Absolutely. And kind of like I said, I love that that's there, but also she's like unapologetically female. She has a very female form. She wears clothing that emphasizes the fact that she's a girl. So does Namari. Namari's got like an awesome halter top and like a really awesome undercut, and they're animated to be girls. One of the things that I read that I thought was really, really cool, I cannot, and I don't have it written down in my notes, the style of fighting that Raya does is based off of a specific style of martial arts that I think, I shouldn't even say it, I think it's from the Philippines. It's a specific type of martial arts that uses the bamboo sticks. One of the things that I thought was really unique and really cool was, because Namari and Raya are both females, the main fight coordinator and choreographer, they specifically brought in a woman martial arts master, because they wanted to make sure that their characters used that form of martial arts in the way that a woman would utilize it.
Cool.
So right down to how they move and how the weapons are used was based on, like, we want this to be real. We want this to be so authentic that, like, we're going to have a female fight choreographer, so we can really be sure that this is exactly how a female would use this style of martial arts.
That is super cool. And can I just say that the fight scene between the two of them at the end is one of the best parts of the movie.
It's so cool.
Beautiful.
So we watched
stunning.
it with my husband, Garrett, watched it with us. And when we were talking about it yesterday, he was like, that was one of the, like, and that's, the animation is so good that you almost forget you're watching animated characters, because the fighting is so good and so tight and so almost not Disney. Like, it's very violent, and it's very
intense.
graphic, and it's very intense, and you're like, ooh, really good. Like, this is a legit fight scene that's like right up there with some of the best fight scenes I've ever seen. This choreography is so good.
Yes. And the cinematography of that scene, I felt like I was watching a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were so, just the two of them and their different styles and the weapons that they used. It was so great. And I, like, that's a good segue into talking about Namari, who I think is a really great secondary character. There isn't actually, like, the only evil character in this is the Droon, and they're not a character, they're more like a spiritual presence.
Yes.
Which I think is a really, because they wanted to develop that world of trust and community. I love that they chose, they're like, we can't have someone who's evil. Like, people do bad things, but it's all motivated by love and family and trying to take care of the people that you love. And so although she is kind of the main antagonist, she's not the villain. She's not the villain of the story. Which, yeah, I think that I really liked Namari. I thought she was really beautiful. I think if I was in first or second grade, I would have asked my mom if I could have her hair cut. And I would have wanted to be her for Halloween. I want her halter top with the little piece of metal in it. I thought that her clothing was awesome. I loved the entire design of her and her mom in Fang.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So cool.
And I also love how they kind of peel the layers off of her throughout the film.
Yes.
Every time you see her in a scene, you get more and more of the layers coming off and the guard kind of coming down. So by the end of the movie, we're really on her side, and it really kind of, I don't want to give anything away, but it kind of falls down to her at the end to make the decision or not, the right decision. And I love that, when we're introduced to her in the kind of prologue, we feel like Raya, we're very distrustful of her. We're like, she's the villain, like she's the bad character. And the way that they develop her character and the way they peel those layers off, I thought was really, really beautiful.
I personally like Namari more than Raya. At least I like her development a lot more. And because part of it for me is like Raya, and it goes back to the prologue, not loving the prologue, because we see Raya in her state of trust and childlike, just immediately trusting this new person. Like, we see that side of her already, so that when we see her stoic side, it ultimately she goes back to kind of trusting people, but like I almost would have rather just seen her stoic right off the bat and introduced to her in that way. Whereas Namari, like, we see her as the betrayer from the beginning. And we see her as the villain from the beginning. And so as she changes, it seemed more clear to me throughout that she was changing little by little. And like, it felt more rewarding, I guess, because we got to see her reach a point we hadn't seen her in before. Whereas Raya was just reverting back to a place that we were introduced to her that way. So it didn't feel like she changed because she just went back to where she was, if that makes sense.
Yes. I feel like one of the things that I like about both of the characters, I agree. I think that Raya stayed pretty flat. I almost think because they wanted the moment where Raya suddenly becomes maybe not the hero to have more of an impact.
Yeah. And it definitely did.
Warning. Yeah, spoiler warning for the listeners. There is a moment where you think everything's going to be better, and then Raya is unable to fully trust. She's unable to let go of the past. She's unable to do what her father had asked her to do all those years before, because of her experience of it not working, specifically with Namari, right? Here is the reason that we are in this, and I can't believe that she has changed. I can't believe. And Raya, who has been so good.
It's the lowest point of the film.
Yeah, and who has brought everyone together, suddenly is not perfect, which is all, every good character has a flaw, but this is like a big flaw. This is like you messed up and you're not someone that I want to be like right now kind of reveal. And so I think that because of that, her growth happens really quickly. It happens in like the last 15 minutes of the film,
Right.
whereas you can kind of see Namari on that journey over a slower period of time. One of the other things I really like about both Raya and Namari, because I think that they're kind of a yin and yang character with each other, is that something that both of them go through. So Raya has her father Benja, and then Namari has her mom Varana. Is that they both have to go through, again, another layer of trust, of the realization that your parents aren't always right, and that sometimes when they give you advice or they tell you something, it turns out to not be true, and that's kind of, on that journey of trust and community and family. I think we all remember that time that we figured out that the first time you figured out that your parents didn't always tell you the truth, or they couldn't do anything, or they couldn't do everything, or they weren't perfect, that your parents were like human beings, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of that layer that was peppered into both of those characters, where I thought that they really they mirrored each other really, really well, because for Raya, it was, seeing the best in everyone. And for Namari, it was seeing the worst in everyone. Her mom taught her that everyone is awful and you have to look out for yourself. And she's like, maybe that's not actually true. And Raya's dad taught her, like, everyone, you have to trust people and everyone is good. And she's like, that's definitely not true. Right. And so I love that push of the that they both kind of experienced that in different ways together. And then one last thing I wanted to say about these two characters. So I really loved this movie. I have a lot to say about it. I really loved it. One of the things that the head of story, her name is Fawn Vera Thorm. I cannot say her last name. She has a last name that I don't know how to pronounce. Her name is Fawn. That she mentioned when they were developing this story is the how wonderful it was to have more than one female character, so that you didn't have to worry about your female character being everything and being perfect. Their characters could be flawed because there was more than one girl who had a lot to do. Even our favorite movies, Mulan, the only girl, right? Tangled, the only girl other than Mother Gothel, right? It's all of our, all of the Disney princesses are like the only girls.
Yep, that's so true.
The reason that people find reasons to criticize them, or they don't fulfill what they want them, is because they have to be everything.
Right.
They have to be absolutely every type of girl and every type of story and fill every kind of need, and they can't be flawed in any way because there's only one of them. And they're like, there were multiple females in this, particularly the fact that you had both Raya and Namari, and that it was okay that their characters were flawed because they had so many different spaces to portray the female experience in. I thought that was a really cool... I wasn't thinking of that when I was watching it, but after I read that she had said that, I'm like, that's absolutely so true. Think of the freedom they had in writing those storylines for those characters, because there was more than one girl.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely.
Can I piggyback something off of that? And you can totally cut this out if it doesn't fit in. But, like, to your point, thinking about a lot of those movies, the villain is also female in the majority of that, and so there is, like, literally no room for your heroine to mess up or be imperfect, because you already have that juxtaposed against the female who is representing all bad and all evil. That's it. I just wanted to vocalize that thought.
Can I just get into my little critique lane for a little bit? All right. I have developed a consideration, a proposal that I personally think would have made this story better and fixed almost every problem I have with it. Before I say this, I want to say again, I love this film. The animation, the design, the music, the production quality is superb. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. However, I personally feel like character development, relationship development, story development, like having time to really sink into this beautiful, beautiful world and beautiful, beautiful characters was lacking. And here's how you solve that. This story would have been better suited as a television series. You would have time to like really have a foundation of the characters, slowly reveal their backstory as the plot progresses, and have time to really sink in all of these different places. They go to so many places, you're rushed through every single beautiful, beautiful place that they're in for like 5 minutes, whereas you could dedicate a whole episode or multiple episodes to each beautiful place. Was I thinking about Avatar: Last Airbender as I was developing this theory? Yes, I was. So that is my proposal.
I think you are right.
Yes.
I think there is nothing saying that they are not going to do that.
That would be amazing.
Girl, we live in the world of Disney Plus. The world is their oyster. The amount of Disney content. I mean, I agree. Kate, would you like to say something before I go on?
No, I also agree. I think, I mean, Tangled, the series, is really like popping in my head right now of like being able to travel through the world and really like soak up the world and enjoy it, and then allow those travels for those relationships to develop further. What else was I gonna say? Oh, I totally fully understand why Avatar was on the brain. But I don't know. I don't think that I like it as a movie too.
Yeah, I would say I think that is, I see where you're coming from, and I actually don't think that that's a critique. I think that that's more of a comment, and it actually plays into how much you liked the film, was that you wanted so much more of that world. I think that that's coming from your brain that loves animated series and loves anime and loves serialized animation.
Yeah, long form media.
And that at the end of the day, it's a movie, and that no movie is ever going to fulfill that need in the sphere of remembering that it's a family film and it's for kids, like kids up to adults, and that we still have to be able to, when you pull out a story like that, it's for slightly older children, or if it's, you can put it in a certain time period during the day. If it's on TV, you can target it towards a different audience. This is a movie. It's for everyone. I think it's okay that there wasn't tons of character development. I think you want that because you love the story so much and you're an adult who loves long form storytelling. But I also think of some of the Disney classics that have lots of characters that you meet. For some reason, in my head, the world that keeps popping up is Pinocchio, because we go to so many different places in Pinocchio, and there's a character in every single place that you love. And it's like we could have spent a whole world or a whole time in the circus and getting to know who each donkey child was and what their backstory was and what's the name of every fish. I would have loved, when you think, and the creepy puppet guy who steals him, and now I'm talking about Pinocchio, but that it's, that kind of, when you think of the world of movie versions of stories, that like, at the end of the day, that is, it's a movie, and you're just not going to get that.
Do you think that if they had decided to make it a TV show, do you think it would have drawn criticism for being too similar to Avatar because they both have those kind of Eastern influences? Or would you say they're not similar at all?
I feel like there probably would be, especially in a Western, market, those criticisms, just because we don't have enough of that representation,
right?
And so the little representation that we do have, they would immediately like be like, oh, these are both like Asian influenced TV shows where they journey across the world. Yeah, okay, they probably would. But I personally don't think that their stories are very similar because
Yeah.
Raya is not the one destined to save the world, like in a lot of stories, like, which is very unique, honestly. Like, quite often there's like a prophecy or like the chosen one. And this story does not fulfill that chosen one, like, a box, where Avatar Last Airbender very much does.
Yeah.
But I do, and there is a similarity of like them journeying to different places and building up their team, that kind of thing.
I would also say that one of the, when you look at the theme of trust and building a community, that one of the reasons that the movie form works better is because I think that a serialized long form version, you just kind of said it, you need a starting team or it's going to be not as fun to watch. And she had to start by herself and pick up people as she went. And, in order to, I think that it would be difficult to get people to buy in past the first few episodes without adding fluff that didn't need to be there to make it entertaining. Yes, Kelly. Tell me.
Here's what you do. Your first episode is Raya meets the last dragon. That's the first episode. Immediately you got Raya, a stoic character, and then you got the dragon, who is the comedic character. There you, and Tuk Tuk. There's your little family, and and boom, the series starts. Disney, hire me. Thanks.
Nope.
Disney, hire me.
Nope.
Yes,
Kelly, no, I disagree. And you want to know why? I know you do. Because the reveal of Sisu as not a mythical, perfect magic being who can fix everything upon finding her is an extremely important part. You could not have shoved all of that into the first episode. I know you didn't like that exposition, but we needed the character. We needed little Namari we needed to understand that everyone thought that this oral tradition of what the dragons were was this. And if it was a half an hour episode where it's like, here's what we thought the dragon was and she's crazy, I think that was a really important part of the journey of the storyline, and that you couldn't meet her right away. She needed to be a little bit like, you were ready to meet Sisu, and then you were kind of like, she's a little weird, like she's maybe not perfect. And she's like, I can't fix it. I don't even know what I'm doing. They handed me a gem. And it's like, uh-oh,
I would argue that you can very quickly establish the norms within the culture right away. That can be like a scene with Raya and a stone dragon, or her map, or her scroll, or whatever. Things can be very quickly established because right off the bat you are a new viewer going into a new world, and your suspension of disbelief is whatever they tell me is true, and then you can easily just implement that. And in one episode you can, and I've seen this, and I can name examples, and I won't go into that rabbit hole, but where in one episode your entire perspective is shifted. They pull the rug out from under you, and boom, you've got a twist all in one episode. And this could have been that.
I'm just gonna say that I don't agree. And I agree that you can. I don't agree that that's what would have been best for this. And I also think that you would have lost your adult audience who doesn't watch long form animation.
Right.
And that they would have missed out on this story then. I think that this was the right medium to tell this story to the broad audience that Disney wanted to reach. That's my hill, and I'm putting my flag in it.
Now that I will agree with, because Disney wants to reach as many people as possible, and through movies. And that's how they know how to do things.
And that this was a story that I think it was worth, that some of their movies don't need to be movies necessarily, but when you look at the theme of this, and again, I think it's funny because they didn't even go into it thinking like, this is what our world needs right now. This was before our world started on fire. but like it's actually kind of like this is a story that needs to be in their large format that a lot of people are going to see, because it really is for everyone, and it's something that everyone can relate to right now.
Right. It's
and I
very
think
timely.
that this was the right medium to tell this story, and that it was really beautiful.
If anything, everyone can take my opinion as, oh, just that, my opinion.
We're just having a lively discussion, Kelly. I'm someone who prefers animated films to animated series, and I
want to watch 100 episodes of anime.
Exactly. And I am someone who's like, here's 2 hours of my time. That's what you got.
All that really tells the audience is how much we really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah.
And we think you all should go see it.
Yeah, I would agree. And as we, wrap up here a little bit, I just want to mention that the music is by James Newton Howard, and it was amazing. And also, he wrote for Treasure Planet, which is one of my favorite soundtracks. So
I love that movie.
I mean, you can't go wrong there. And
You've
we've
never
mentioned
seen it, Laura. You need to change.
Wait,
that.
what? Sorry.
She's never seen Treasure Planet.
Wait, pause the show. Hold up. What's wrong with this world?
I'm sorry, did I just throw you under the bus?
Okay, you've never seen Fievel Goes West.
No, that was me.
She's never seen Fievel Goes West. You've never seen An American Tale. I've
never seen either.
An American Tale 2 Fievel Goes West. The definitively better of the two Fievel films.
Snap.
Wow. Okay, we need to have a movie night.
We need to have like a movie month.
Movie month, yes.
Oh dear. Also, when we had mentioned some of the voice talent for the film, but it features a predominantly Asian American cast, and that is a triumph in and of itself. And I personally think everyone did great. So,
justice for Kelly Marie Tran. After all of those Star Wars haters, I'm so proud of my girl. She's amazing as Raya.
Yes.
Fun fact. Kate can answer this. I think it's hilarious. Of the main cast, do you know which character was not voiced by an Asian actor?
Is it the baby?
No.
Oh. I don't.
Go ahead, Kate.
It is Tuk Tuk, voiced by the one and only incomparable Alan Tudyk.
Yes!
Who has literally done all of the noises for every Disney movie for the last 6 years.
Oh my God.
And Bill Hader. But it's I just think it was really funny because when you pull up, when you type in Raya and the Last Dragon cast and the IMDb comes up, it's just all of these unbelievable Asian and Asian American actors. Mm-hmm. And then there's blonde, just the most white man, I'm here too in the list.
I'm Duck Duck. That is
I'm
great.
the pill bug.
5 stars to the pill bug. Yeah, I just say, go watch it. Give it a shot. It's great. It's a fun time. Personally, not my favorite Disney princess movie, but definitely a great one. And, give it some time to let it sink in that it won't be a TV show, and maybe I'll feel differently.
Maybe it will be a TV show.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be. Again, the Disney Plus has changed my entire expectations of what they're going to be creating.
Right.
I'm excited to watch it again. I think it's a film that I will revisit several times. I'm excited to watch it again and notice other things. I feel like the animation was so unbelievable. I was so focused on the story that I didn't really get to take in as much of the world as I wanted. I was mentioning some of my little facts and figures earlier. Another mind-blowing number for me that I just want to throw out there: 72,000 individually animated elements that existed within the background animation.
That is amazing.
Not just here's the individual elements that were animated and then picked up and placed in the world. I'm excited to be able to, I was so focused on the story that was happening in each of the worlds, and obviously, so it's this one is where the chase scene happens. This is where the emotional heavy lifting happens. This one is where, happens, I thought I'm really excited to be able to watch that again and dig more into like noticing what's happening in each world. Particularly because I think it was really cool that when they decided that they wanted to animate this movie and have these in a way that like each land was super individual, they divided the animation groups into land teams, and they weren't allowed to communicate with people outside of their land team because they wanted to make sure that everything in that world was like organically being created within that team. And so if you were assigned to the Fang team, you only worked with the Fang team during development. You didn't work on different elements from different parts.
So cool. I love that.
Yeah.
That is super interesting.
It's so cool. So I'm really, really excited knowing that it was animated that way, and that like I'm also I think it's amazing that this entire thing, we didn't point out the fact that once they like it's been in development for 4 years, but all of the animation and voice acting happened remotely because the entire thing was done over the last year. And so this beautiful piece of art was this unbelievable piece of collaboration of everyone at home. And
that is amazing.
They created this movie. Like, it's like a pandemic miracle.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Seriously. Yeah. That is truly amazing. And just another place to say, like, animation is the media of the moment because it can be developed, in isolation. Yeah, just what a testament to the team. Everyone who worked on this movie just deserves a piece of cake, and all of my gratitude, because it truly is another fantastic, fun Disney film, and everyone should go see it. Thank you guys for joining me and talking about Raya. And, next time we're all together, we should watch it along with some other movies, apparently.
Yes, we've got a whole list.
Okay, I can't believe we totally forgot to talk about this, but we have to talk about the animation of Bincha and how just insane it was.
Right.
It was... I was distracted from the very important exposition he was doing because I was like, I think that's a real guy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that everything else is animated, but there's a real dude playing Benja.
And the way that it was animated, I just felt like I was watching. It took me a while to get into the animation because I felt like I was watching animated dolls, especially because like with the way that it was animated and the way the light was like hitting them, they looked like shiny, like a Barbie doll does. And so it took me a couple minutes to go like, that's like a little Uncanny Valley-esque.
Yes, it felt very Uncanny Valley for me.
Yeah, it took me a second to get into it. That was it.
That was it. We just had to mention that because that was it was off-putting for a while for me.
Yeah.
And why just him? Like, I don't know.
Maybe because it was like I feel like maybe because it was the very beginning of the movie, and so once you get past that kind of prologue, you're like, okay, this is the world, and this is what the movie looks like, and this is what we're kind of going for with the animation style. But I don't know why it was just that opening scene that was like, ooh.
Yeah, it was weird.
Everyone else like had a very animated style to them, right? And each type of person that lived in each of the worlds was really unique. The people of Fang really reminded me of the animation style of Clone Wars, right? They had very angular faces, and even Raya and the other people of Heart looked like animated characters. Mm-hmm. And Benja looked like a dude, like just like a normal human. Like I said, I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a real human in this movie. He's a real guy. I know it is. It
threw me
almost
off.
Scary.
Yeah,
he was animated so real.
Actually was a bit scary.
And distracting. Agree. Yeah, he was really, really real.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. We'll see what Disney does next.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, I don't know if you want to include this. You can chop it in, but I did think I'm just so proud of all my research.
Yeah.
I did want to mention that this movie used a brand new software for the clothing, and it's a draping software that is reflective of the style of clothing, which is a lot of wrapped pieces of Southeast Asia. Sorry, Fergus has made his appearance, and he decided we don't need to have our microphones in our ears and that we should pet him instead. I don't even know what it's called. You don't have to include this part. They have new software for clothes. I'm done.
And the very long Minnesota goodbye is officially over.
Woo!
Woohoo!
And I'm very proud of your research.
Thanks.
Me too.
I did it for you.
I felt very unprepared.
At least one of us was prepared. It's usually Kelly.
I was not prepared. So thank you.
Ready.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Fanimated is made possible thanks to our generous patrons over at patreon.com/Fanimated. Join the Fanimated crew to vote for upcoming episode topics and hear bonus content. Our music is provided by Purple Planet Music, and the art is done by myself. You can find me on Instagram at CandorDraw. You can email us at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram and Facebook at Fanimated Podcast. Thank you, Kate and Laura, for joining me this week. And I'll talk at you guys next week with Emma when we finally complete the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. In the meantime, stay tuned and stay animated.
And we have gone off the rails. But,
Very off the rails.
anyway, wait. It's something about there might be a something and maybe one small thrill, but there's nothing dirty going on. That's the theme of the chicken farm. Anyway.
Do you guys want to talk about Raya and the Last Dragon?
Okay. We're back to Raya and the Dragon. And scene.
Great.
Raya.
I will definitely agree with you guys that Raya and the Last Dragon has a heck of a lot more. Frick, what did I say now?
What are you laughing at?
It's not funny. Keep going. I'm sorry. Your ability to take literally 3 seconds and transition back to the conversation we were having 10 minutes ago seamlessly was beautiful. And I ruined it, and now I'm ready for it. So go back.
Oh, thank you. These are my podcasting skills, everybody.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right.